starting. Dear colleagues, please take your seats. We're starting our next session, and I would like to introduce Lisa Fröhlich, Sustainable Supply Chain Expert from Germany, and the panelists. We have the panelists from the Netherlands, India, South Africa, Kazakhstan.
So, after a few technical problems again, but thank you, Aigerim, for fixing everything. You can go on the stage already. So, I only have a few. First of all, very warm welcome also from my side. A little bit hectic with all these hybrid formats, even though we should be used as educators to do so. Yeah, it's always a little bit, let's say, great to see you, Rob and Luis, that you made it. Thank you so much. So, starting with my slides, I only have a really brief introduction because we have 4 outstanding panelists, and Aigerim already said it. So we have contributions from all around the world. So we cover all continents, and Aurora is so kind to give her presentation also on the I5 project. So we also have the US perspective in, so you can really expect really, really cool presentations. And I asked them for presentations because integrating sustainability into curricula is really a difficult topic to talk about. So I really want you to get some concrete examples what they are doing in their areas. And I will then briefly introduce the speakers right before they start their presentation. We will start with the online presentation so that we have the technical problems ahead of us. And I really hope that at least Rob can stay for the rest of the panel discussion, because we have some interesting questions to discuss in the end after the presentation. So, and please, presenters, stick to the 15 minutes. So I will, let's say, follow myself, my own rules, let's say, to make it short. I only want to give you a brief introduction because I found this statement, everything must change so that everything can remain as it is. I found it in a newspaper in Germany. I really like this because what you can see here is I have chosen, or I have did a Google research and I found out that on what you can see on the left side as the IFMD conference, management education trends from 2017, and on the other side I have chosen one study from India, because India is now, due to the new government regulation, really catching up with us. So they are really doing a good job in terms of sustainable education. And what you can see here is nothing changed. Yeah. So what you can see on the right side is a little bit described in a more detailed way, but it's the same. It's about digitalization, it's about globalization, it's about collaboration. Everything we already knew for years is still there. Or I go back because only to focus on 1 or 2 examples, because we will deep dive into this within the presentations. With the collaboration, I would like to give you 1 or 2 examples a little bit later on. The question of the new qualities we have to teach. So the what, yeah, what do we want to teach? This is very important. And then in the end, we have to adapt unconventional teaching strategies, yeah, which is also very important. So we are only talking about case design and role playing, but we have so much there out there in the world. And this is also the reason why I have invited all these phenomenal panelists, because they have really, really innovative stuff going on. And we have to benefit from this. And we have to, and this is then the next slide, because we really have to collaborate. We have to benefit from each other. We have to learn from each other, because yesterday we had a really nice talk in the evening with Saloni, and I learned so much about India and said, you really have this in place. So let's share this information. So this is what I would really want to achieve with this panel here. Yeah, this is a little bit an answer to what happened yesterday, or what we discussed yesterday, because I'm now reading the book of Henry Mintzberg, because I had the honor to meet him in person at the last AOM conference in Boston. And I was really, really enlightened by his spirit, let's say, because he's always redefining himself. So he's really good role model for us. And this book I can only recommend, Rebalancing Society. Every page is so interesting and so important. And on the first page, you can see this one statement, but anyone who believes that corporate social responsibility will compensate for corporate social irresponsibility is living in a win-win wonderland. And this is exactly the problem we have right now. Yeah, we try to bring in sustainability in research and teaching, but our environment is not changing. Our environment is irresponsible. So the business model of a business school, for example, and this is why we are struggling to bring this in. So we also have to think about the way how we are acting and not only the action itself in the context of research and teaching. And I have to add this from Adam Smith, because we really have to, or we really should go back to our, let's say, fathers of management education, because they already said what we are discussing right now. Yeah, also Schumpeter. So his message was, try to be creative, try to be innovative. Yeah, don't always use the same path. Try to find out new ways. And this is what we are doing also right now. We are always calling for innovation, for creativity, but we have this old model in mind. Yeah, so we analyze something, we plan it, we implement it, we monitor it, but you're not creating innovation with this process. Yeah, so we also have to reinvent this theoretical part. And he says, yeah, that drives butchers, brewers, and bakers. So at 1966, when he was writing this book, yeah, free men in the marketplace to serve society by serving themselves. So this was his purpose. And society always means environment and social aspects, yeah, this holistic approach. So, and this is one idea of collaborating. So I am co-chairing the AOM Metavision Ambassador Program. And honestly, when we handed in the last proposal for the last AOM conference, I said, why don't we bring in CEEMAN and Prime? And they said, what is CEEMAN, what is Prime? And I said, sorry. Yeah, so they are doing the same stuff like you are doing here. So let's cooperate and let's bring this stuff together. And it was a really outstanding discussion we had to define what we should do in the next step. So if you're interested to join this ambassador program, please let me know. The next round, we're already starting to prepare the next PW proposal. And this is maybe something we can also come back to. We had this yesterday, some ideas how we can do joint research, for example, and Prime has a new format. It's called Prime Favorites, and Divya, also a very well-known professor for arts and management in India, she came up with this art and management education, and I checked all the literature she was referring to, and there are a lot of CEEMAN members in it. Yeah? So I thought this could be also a very interesting idea to join. And we already mentioned yesterday Nancy Fraser. So there is a really cool conference going on every second year. So maybe we can do something together and bring this arts and management forward. So that's the idea from my side in terms of collaborating, yeah, to make it easier for us to integrate sustainable teaching formats. But now I will hand over the floor to the panelists. So we will start with Luis. Is this okay?
Good with me. Yes, thank you. Just checking that you can hear me, Lisa. Can you hear me speaking?
Everything perfect. I will briefly introduce you and then you can directly start your slides. So
thank you.
At the moment, Deputy Dean and Executive Director of Faculty, and you have a really huge impact in bringing in academic and program development into your faculty. You're an expert in strategy, governance, and ethics, and particularly to organizations and information systems, and you are a very well-known publisher for those kind of research results and also for your strategy consultancy work. So the floor is yours. Thank you very much for joining us, and we are looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Lisa, and for accommodating me all the way from Johannesburg this morning. Unfortunately, was not able to travel to Almaty, and in fact, we had some visa issues as well as some coordination issues, but it's wonderful to be accommodated online, and I really appreciate it. I'm going to share my screen now in order to share some of the work that we've been doing at GIBS in terms of integrating sustainability in the curriculum. So I have to just say up front that this project that I'm going to be talking about today is not my project, so I don't want to take the personal credit for it, but it is a project that was developed by our MBA director at Gibbs and has been enormously successful for us. I'm going to speak about a particular project that we've developed with the view to integrating sustainability into our curriculum. It's one of a broader set of things that we are doing, because sustainability and climate leadership, and for us climate includes every aspect of the environment in which we live, is really important at Gibbs. Just to give a little bit of background about who we are, Gibbs is the abbreviation, but we're the Gordon Institute of Business Science, and we're the business school of the University of Pretoria, which is the administrative capital of South Africa, but we're actually physically located in Johannesburg, which is the business capital of South Africa, about 60 kilometers away from Pretoria. And the picture that you can see on your screen there is of our campus. We're a postgraduate only school. We don't have any undergraduate students. And not only postgraduate, but post-experience as well. So with the exception of one small cohort, all of our students are working professionals. Average age of our MBAs, for example, is around about 35, and everybody is engaged in their work practice at the same time as they are studying with us. So that's a little bit of context about the school. I think it's really important to give some context about South Africa, which I think will give you an indication of why sustainability is so important to us as an institution and as a society. So South Africa is a fairly well-developed economy, the third largest in Africa, with and probably about the third highest GDP per capita in Africa, and historically developed on the extractive industries and agriculture, but also very strong financial services and technology industries in South Africa as well. But we do unfortunately face a myriad of problems. So currently our base unemployment rate is somewhere around about 35%. It's up and down a little bit month to month. And in youth unemployment, we sit with over 50% youth unemployment. In some provinces in the country, it's higher than that. We have the unhappy distinction of having the highest Gini coefficient in the world. And obviously that's attendant to not just inequality, but also very high levels of poverty. We have substantial issues with corruption in both the public and private sectors, which are coming to the fore. And in fact, it gives me doing quite a lot of anti-corruption work as well as other things. And we also have water scarcity issues. So Africa is generally a water scarce continent, and South Africa is no exception to that. In addition to the sort of basic geographical phenomena of the fact that it doesn't rain much, we also have some infrastructural issues around water scarcity as well. We have significant power supply issues with daily power cuts that range between, today we'll probably have about 4 hours, they can go up to 10 hours a day. And this is because of an aging fleet of coal-driven power stations, which forms the backbone of our power supply. So what that means is that we have very high levels of carbon emissions. We're one of the worst carbon emitters in the world, and we also have air quality issues deriving from those. So there are very significant challenges, and these provide a space that we really need to be thinking about sustainability. It's not an abstract thing for us. It's a very real and very concrete set of challenges that we face here. So what we wanted to do is bring this and make it very real for our students, not just in terms of the problems that we all face every day, but in terms of what we can be doing about it, and how can we do something to address some of these challenges, and how do we integrate that into our curriculum. So we designed this project in what is known as our postgraduate diploma in business administration, for reasons of alignment and accreditation in the South African education system. Practically speaking, the first year of our MBA program is this postgraduate diploma in business administration. So it's essentially year one of the MBA. And this program has as its learning goals that students should acquire functional knowledge and skills in management. So these are the typical subjects of marketing, human resources, operations management, financial management, accounting, those sorts of things. And as a secondary learning goal, that they should learn about the effective management of themselves. So there's a lot of personal development work that also happens in this first year of the MBA. But the overall objective is to give people this base of business, academic business knowledge, essentially, because a lot of the students coming into this program, like elsewhere in the world, don't necessarily have an academic background in management. They may be engineers or doctors or physiotherapists, or we once had a ballet dancer, which was also fabulous. So we have, people who don't necessarily have an academic background in management, and we need to establish that in year one. The challenge around the curriculum is that when you're teaching, as we all know, when you're teaching these functional subjects, how do you integrate them? That's always a big question. And then specifically in relation to the integrating sustainability part, how do we make sure that what we're teaching people has impact and that it is responsive to the context in which they find themselves, the business and social context in which they find themselves. And we were also interested in saying, how can we do things a little bit differently? How can we renew our pedagogy and create something that is innovative and challenging for us and for the students? So what we did was we designed what we call the Applied Business Project. So Applied Business Projects are not new to us at Gibbs. We do a lot of applied projects in our executive education division, for example, where we're running programs for companies. We typically assign projects to participants there where they actually have to go and find a problem in their business and solve it. But in this case, the Applied Business Project is a little bit different. For starters, the students are all coming from different organizations, so they're not going to find one organization where they can do a project. And secondly, we really wanted to focus on societal issues in this project, but from a business perspective. So the students do this project in syndicates, and it takes the full duration of the program. So that's 1 year in which they're working on this program. And they start pretty much on day one. We tell them about it, and it spans the entire year of the work. It's complex and unstructured. We give them guidance as to process and how to proceed with the project, but we don't give them guidance as to content. So they have to develop the content of the project themselves. And that's deliberately done because that's how life works, and management decisions don't present themselves to you with, well, even questions, never mind answers. As I've said, it's a syndicate assignment, and it counts 17% of the overall program. So most subjects count for 10 credits on the program. This one counts for 20. It's a very substantial piece of what the students need to do in order to successfully complete this program. So to set this up in a way that enables the students to tackle a societal problem, we use the SDGs as a framework. So as I've already said, in South Africa, we are confronted with a wide range of challenges, and these can all be mapped onto the SDGs. So what we do is we tell the students that they need to select their own project, and this project has to explicitly be linked to one of the SDGs, with the exception of SDG 3. And we leave SDG 3 out because it's the health SDG, and health ethics clearance is, I don't know what it's like where you live, but it's very, very onerous where we are. So it would slow up the projects enormously if we had to get health ethics clearance from the university. So we leave that one out, but there are plenty others to choose from. And then within their chosen goal, the syndicates choose a particular issue that they are going to focus on. And the process of the project is for them to find a solution to a particular issue, a particular problem that they've identified in the community. And it is up to them to identify that, but it must address issues of a sustainable development goal and the well-being of goals of individuals or group in the South African environment. So it is a research project of sorts, and these are literally the instructions that are given to the students. So they choose a goal, they need to analyze the situation, decide on an issue, a root cause analysis, and then identify one aspect to develop a solution for. They have to do research using multiple data collection methods, and then make use of the academic literature to come up with a problem analysis and solution formation. So this is where it is a research project that is focused on an SDG issue. And then the other part of it that's important for us is the integration part. And therefore, what we ask them to do is to apply theory and tools from a minimum of 6 of their core subjects. And there are 10 core subjects on the program. So they have to take 6 of those and be very explicit about how they are applying what they have learned in those subjects in order to come up with their solution. So it's solution focused, it's SDG based, but it's also very much about the integration of what they're learning over the course of the year. So the idea is that it provides a real world application of theory that they've learned and a requirement for integration. So how are we finding that this works? There are a lot of benefits to the project. I will say that it's very challenging for the students. It's something that they wrestle with on multiple levels. It's a big syndicate project that always comes with its own challenges. It requires them to think outside of their immediate business environment, which is also challenging for them. It requires them to do empirical data gathering sometimes in communities that they may not have been into before. That can be quite challenging for them. So it's a big deal, if I can put it that way. But it is something that we are finding has a lot of benefits for us and for the students. So I've listed some of those on the screen here. Primarily for us, this question of creating awareness of SDGs is really important. It's a strange thing, but there's a kind of disconnect sometimes between the way people experience their lives and what they think of as the environment or climate change or those problems. I was in an online session with some of our students in the middle of COVID, and it was a joint session that was being run with a European organization, and climate and sustainability came up a lot. And one of the students actually commented to me afterwards that they really don't think that we should be thinking about that, because that's a first world problem. Sorting out climate change is not our problem. And we've got more immediate problems in our environment, and why are we even thinking about that kind of stuff? So to be able to connect the immediate problems that we face to the broader sustainability challenge is really important for us, because it gets people out of their small, what am I facing right now in my business mindset, into a greater mindset of sustainability at a literally global level. So that's a really important thing that we need to be doing. And we find that this project is really helpful in that regard. We hope that we get some viable business solutions, and we've had 1 or 2 that actually students are running with. And then there is a range of pedagogical benefits around thinking skills and integration and so on. We need to develop skills for research, because we have a research component in our MBA where students have to produce a research report. So that's also a useful byproduct of this particular process for us. So really beneficial. And we have done well externally as well as internally with this project. For example, we were a student award runner-up at Prime recently for one of our syndicates that had worked on a particular project. And it's not only at Prime, but we've actually been recognized in a couple of places for the design and outcomes of the way in which this project runs. To give you an example, and this is the last slide here, so I think I'm finishing on time, Lisa. This is an example of one of the projects that was done by one of the syndicate groups. It focuses on SDG 6, which is clean water and sanitation for all. And the study was one on changing behaviors and attitudes affecting urban domestic households in Gauteng. Gauteng is the province in which we live. And this was about water consumption. So we have not enough water, not enough potable water, and excessive levels of consumption. In fact, yesterday we had a major outage of water in Johannesburg because of excessive consumption. So this is a very real problem for us. Not a hypothetical one at all. So what the students did was that they found that if there was education and awareness, this could influence water use behavior, and they came up with an interactive mobile app that would aim to influence water use behavior of urban households, providing them with metrics and then also some gamification, a rewards program. other than just being a good person or not running out of water or not paying too much for it, to build a rewards program into the app itself, which is really quite innovative. And then this is a mock-up of what an app like this could look like, in terms of just from a design point of view. And that's the project, the Mare Saver. So I hope that's given you an overview of a particular piece of work that we've done in an effort to integrate sustainability into our curriculum. It remains an ongoing challenge, but one that none of us, I think, can afford to neglect. And that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Louise. I was just a little bit laughing because every drop counts. Maybe you can remember this. Fiji Water was heavily punished for this using this slogan, because they are sending their Fiji water all around the world, and this was not very sustainable. But thank you very much, because those kind of projects are really, really important. And I hope you can stay a little bit longer, because this would be also one interesting aspect to discuss, how to engage and motivate students, because this is a completely different learning journey. Yeah, so you have to do a lot more, and students are also not so much motivated anymore after the COVID crisis. So we also, as teachers, have to find way how to gamify our educational approaches, and how to, let's say, bring them in so that they can come up with solutions. Thank you very much.
I'll stay on as long as I can. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much. Then we go on with Rob. So you're obviously back in Europe? Okay, because he was at the UN gathering.
Yes, I'm a bit jet lagged, but I'm happy not to have been going to Almaty all the way. So I'm stuck in Rotterdam now, but I hope to be present there.
Perfect, perfect. So I would kindly introduce you. So you have so many titles, so I've only chosen one of them. You're Professor of International Business and Society at Rotterdam School of Management. So you are presenting the European perspective of innovative teaching formats and how to integrate sustainability into business. You are Academic Director of Partnership Research Center, a co-founder of the Department of Business, Society and Management. But what, from my point of view, is really important, that you support students and managers in the same way to complete their sustainability journey successfully. And I was really glad to read your last book, Principle of Sustainable Business. Is also a book I can only recommend. And we will learn a lot now from you based on these ideas you have finalized in your book. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa, also for having me, and also for spending at least the time here with me. And I will share my slides. Let's see whether that works. And then So yes, I hope you can see it. So just coming back from New York, where of course the General Assembly of the UN was convening, but also the week on the interim report on climate action and a lot of other related issues. We call that the Decade of Action, of course, because we are midway on the SDG agenda. And the basic story is, of course, to a large extent, we're off track. So if I can give you the most important messages that I would like to convey with you in the next 15 minutes is make it challenge-based if you want to integrate sustainability in curricula, and make it principles-based. And then, of course, the question is how to manage this. So rapidly going through this in terms of the general challenge, the world has been considered to be as a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And one of the challenges we face is, are we going to simplify this and then look at smaller parts and then hopefully develop something that can also help approach some of the problems? Or are we first look at the systems approach and then look at the issues at stake, in particular also when we talk about integrating sustainability in curricula? So we take the latter position, and basically we say, on the one hand, we have a number of what we call man-made crises that goes all the way down from the financial crisis to the climate crisis, and they are interconnected. This is the World Economic Forum, and basically saying, well, you can identify or separate some of these issues from each other, And I liked what Louise also said when in South Africa talking about climate, that's a first world problem. But of course, in South Africa, for instance, it is what we also discussed in New York, is the cost of living crisis, for instance. That is a global crisis. So summarizing this in terms of what the kind of crisis that we face, the word is then polite crisis, which is a World Economic Forum term, or the cascade of crisis, which is a term used in the recent Sustainable Development Report. And in general, what we then look at is what I would call a multipolar world, which is in rapid transition. So that's the general challenge. And I think, and just also making this a more specific presentation, I think we are facing three interconnected challenges. On the one hand, I would call that the institutional challenge, how to enhance the relevance of business schools. So why would you take the SDGs and what to focus on? Secondly, it's about research, how to create a scientific foundation also for this endeavor. And that also means how to align research around the SDGs. So that's not a simple challenge. And of course, then teaching, which will be the core of this conference, but also cannot be distinct from research and institutional challenges. And then I will come and tell you a little bit about how we at the Rotterdam School of Management have been trying to integrate that all and stimulate students to deal with complexity, stay motivated, and perhaps also not immediately go for solutions, but also try to figure out first what the root causes of the problem are. And actually what Louise just said, I really can support that. So what we try, and what I try to convey in my short presentation is, how can we align this? So what we do normally, and I summarize then how we do that in terms of the orientation of the institute, of the teachers and of the students, say, make it challenge-based, principle-based, then think about framing how to deal with that. What are the correct frames? That can be scientific frames, it can be practical frames. Then navigating change. Nothing is solid. So I was also happy, Lisa, that you referred to Mintzberg in your introduction, because this, what Mintzberg also said, it's about changing worlds, rebalancing society, and how to navigate this. That requires a self-empowerment and an assessment, which then can be guided through what we call purpose-driven ambitions. So that, to make it more concrete, is the challenge base for an institute is that what societal challenge that to focus on, the principle base is what are the organizational principles to embrace. If you want to frame it, what kind of impact do you focus on? If you want to navigate this change, how to measure and leverage change. If you want to empower your staff, your students, the institutes, the country, how to empower participants. And then, of course, if you want to guide this, what value proposition or motto are you going to focus on? So I will use these 6 elements shortly to then guide you through this whole idea on how to deal with the challenges on an institutional, on a teaching, and on the student level. And of course, I will give you some idea of what the Rotterdam School of Management experience entails. I have a few slides that I will very quickly go through, but not because I want to quickly go through this, but actually because I think you can get the message very quickly. But be convinced that I will stay at the panel also, and there's lots of material that you can also consult. So, simplifying the institutional challenge. It is like a sort of a cloud and a very, to a certain extent, also a toxic environment where we talk about societal relevance of the institute, but from the scientific integrity, the Gen Z students, the workload, climate change, and all sorts of other challenges that we face also in terms of funding of the institute. So that's the general challenge for our institute. And what we did then at the Rotterdam School of Management say, we need to then search for a principle-based approach, where we then can say, what would we like to achieve? So this is the purpose that we addressed in 2017. We want to be a force for positive change in the world. And what we did, this is a little booklet that we made. And then we engage all staff, including also the supportive staff, in trying to figure out how are you motivated by the SDG agenda? What is the topics that you want to address? How do you really want to also give purpose to your daily activities? So one of the elements that we did, we tried to recreate the campus and to create an inspirational environment and give you some ideas. There were posters around the campus there. We even planted a tree with the Dalai Lama on creating a sort of synthesis between head, heart, and hands. There are centers. We are a big university. It also created a campus that now looks completely different than the one that we had 15 years ago, which was just a collection of office buildings. So that's one. Another one was to create these frames and then use it also as an active tool to bring society on campus. So these are just some pictures of business leaders, academic leaders, government leaders, former prime ministers and the like. You can see me there also with the coordinator of this whole effort, Eva Rood, who would then say, use the frame of the SDGs, smile, of course, and then see what we can do together with others. This is just an illustration of many of the efforts that we did in the past, almost 8 years. But we also, of course, created scientific routing. So one of the things we did was what we call a book series. And that's the book that Lisa refers to, the Principles of Sustainable Business. But the predecessor was a little booklet that's open access. You can find it on the website in order then to support academic thinking and then basically say, okay, if we want to engage everyone at the university, we need, of course, to have a scientific, call it the theory of change. So this is a book series and you can find it also open access on the website. But the core was then a booklet that I wrote and the core now is a big book that gives you all sort of tips and tricks and a website including with that. And the most practical thing and the most open access thing that we did was to reach out and also to solicit feedback of everyone around the world. We call that the Driving Business Towards the Sustainable Development Goals. It's a MOOC. It's very successful. We won the 2019 SDG Academy Prize for that, but it now has more than 40,000 followers to do that. So that's one part of the story. As an academic community, try to internalize the challenges, work on that, create an environment in which you can also hopefully be inspirational, but also reach out. Not just reaching out because we want to sort of lecture to the rest of the world, but we actively search for interaction with the world in order to improve ourselves. So let's get to the second point, the research orientation. So the 6 elements are still there. Actually, the challenge should be to look at the grand challenges or the wicked problems. We need to look at the systemic things, but also at the societal and the operational parts. So we are a business school. So the framing is about corporate action. The navigating change is dealing with strategic gaps. Actually, that's where Mintzberg also comes into play in terms of tinkering processes and overcoming intention realization gaps. It is about empowering also. So that also means that we are not going to develop cases without a context. It really needs to also be contextualized with actionable targets, management tools. And now, of course, you can see immediately that the Sustainable Development Goals and certainly also SDG 4, but also the nexus with other goals are really important. Well, making it clear then, the fundamental approach is then based on that book that Lisa also mentioned. I'm really happy about that. It's also part of the Prime series. So we tried really to also to engage, not just in our own approach, but to align with all the other organizations around the world. So what do we see as researchers? What is our challenge? And the challenge is, you can see, is to a certain extent, it is also climate change or pollution, but it's also, say, the lower status of academics or the tenure track stress or the publish or perish stress. We all face our challenges, and even the underpayment also of academics is part of the challenge. That might look like a sort of individual challenge of academics, but I hope you understand that it is related. In order then to search for ways to deal with that, linking the institutional challenge with the researchers and the teachers' challenge is an important one. How do we deal with that? Of course, we use that approach, but then we try to develop the innovative tools. So Lisa already mentioned the Partnership Resource Center. That is a center where we try to link academic research with societal issues. We develop tools, labs, like the PPP lab on food and water, but also the BBS, which is called the Better Business Scan, which then boils down to a number of the management tools in a tool that managers can use in 15 minutes. But the idea is then that we start into a conversation also with managers, linking up, of course, also to our research and teaching programs. Our offer thereby, by the way, is that we try now to customize the approach we developed at the Rotterdam School of Management And you can see some of the front-runner examples. It goes all the way from Trinity College in Dublin to the business schools in Jakarta and Kuala Lumpur, who now apply those ideas from a fundamental point of view, then also using the teachers' resources that are developed. And actually, part of why I say this here in Almaty, I would have loved to be with you, is to really be there in person and engage in a conversation with everyone. So that's why I call it our offer. Now, getting to the last part of my presentation, of course, we need to talk about the students' challenge. And that's, of course, that will help us to reinvent or recreate our teaching orientation. So the same 6 principles or six frames. So what is the basic challenge? It's, of course, Gen Z challenges. Then the principles are 21st century skills, how to deal with complexity. Of course, we talk about principles like prime, responsible management education, but also principles like lifelong learning. The framing should be about personal action, and it should be about intrinsic and extrinsic motivations of our students. Navigating change then is based on what I would call how to develop the leadership skills or the sustainable leadership skills that don't necessarily have to be leadership as the CEO of a company, but also that even as a student or as a manager, you can become an agent of change of your own destiny. Self-assessment will be about lifelong learning principles. You do it alone, but you also have to collaborate. So we talk about buddy groups and the like. And purpose-driven then not only will be the sustainable development goals, but just give you an idea, we also embrace what is called the inner development goals, which is an effort to link the SDGs also to inner development approaches of our students. We have the fundamental approach, and I was really lucky in a previous phase to develop this as a teaching exercise, and we call that the skill sheets, which therefore is also important because it's not just challenge-based, but also principle-based. So these are the Gen Z challenges, and they are, of course, as wicked as any of the other challenges. You can see comparable things, but you can also see specific ones. And we take our students very seriously. On the one hand, they have housing problems, they have student debt, but they also suffer from loneliness, on addictions, on robotization. What is the flexibilization of society? And of course, in a country like South Africa that Louisa is referring to, is unemployment. But in say more Western society, it's about what we complain about the spoiled generation, the snowflake generation. So these are some of the challenges that our students face. And of course, they are very much context dependent. It's important. On the other hand, there are a number of universal challenges that our students face. So in a way, to deal with that, we take a principle-based approach. And this is where the skill sets come into play. We start with saying, what are the principles of good research? And I just summarize, or I'll show you the slide taken also from the book, where we say we have 7 basic skills that you need to develop on the basis of a number of principles. And you can read about the principles here. It's about principles of virtuous or lifelong learning. It is about the principles of active reading. It is the principles of constructive listening. And by just looking at this, you can already see, and there's a website also that can help you through this, that it's about dare to, for instance, fail, dare to work together, open up, explain the flaws in the research, which actually is something that I would like also not only to see with my students, but also with the academic staff. You can already see how students, staff, and institutional challenges are interrelated. And it goes on. It's principles of powerful writing. It's principles of effective presentation. And the final one that we deal with, and they are all interrelated, so call it the nexus, it is the principles of effective team management. So for instance, I tell my students, work together, not because it's a luxury, but because it is the way you probably will have to deal with all the complex issues that you face for the rest of your life. So every team is a group, but a group is only rarely a team. So work with it and become a coach and try to make effective organization, not only of your buddy group or your assignment in class, but also in organizing your life, maybe in other areas. How do we do that? So how do we frame that? How do we challenge that? We have an I Will campaign, and that's a long time campaign already that we invented already more than 10 years ago, so before the SDGs. And you will see here some slides of our students, that business students, Hardly any one of them said, I will earn a lot of money. I will squeeze out the profits from my suppliers or whatever. Of course they won't. But you can see already that we try to confront our students with, what do you want? What you actually really want. So they come up with these statements and we make nice pictures of that. And now you can see there's a website also where those pictures are shared. There are more than 10,000 now, where almost everyone, including also pictures of the staff or also of societal leaders, where you can see everybody is more or less in the same area, thinking about what you want, what you will do, and how to engage with that. We added then one element to this because we want to make it collective. So from an I will to a we will statement, and this is just one of those a challenge that we do our students within a teaching and a research exercise, by the way, never isolated. And this is, for instance, a group of 3 students that said, I have an I will statement, and then in a leadership course that was a link to business model innovation, this is what they came up with. So what do we do? On the base of that, the skill sheets, the principles of sustainable business, 2 fundamental approaches. We engage in all sorts of innovative tools, including in the inner development goals. We engage our students in poster presentations, something that I learned from my regular activities in international conferences of scientists. We create buddy groups, and many of the buddy groups are not just engaged in learning and teaching that we organize ourselves, they organize themselves as well. And then, for instance, we do a tool like the Sustainable Leadership Profiler, and it's all open access, everybody can consult that. And for instance, the last thing that I would like to mention is a big project that we are now developing, where we say, we take the province of South Holland, and maybe you don't know that, it's a small country, but there is The Hague, Rotterdam, it's a very vibrant region, and many of those organizations have adopted the SDGs, but they don't know how to implement it. So what we did in a collaboration between Leiden, Delft, and Erasmus University to engage in what we say the Decade of Action, we create an 18-week challenge-based learning program where the students are engaged in addressing a number of the issues that our customers or our clients in the region, that can be governments, local municipalities, companies, and the big multinationals are there, NGOs, and anybody else. And then we try to arrange that and to create a sort of joint learning environment and action environment where then the impact of the program is not just teaching, research, but actually we try to search for being effective for the province, in this case of South Holland, to also engage in the Decade of Action, which is badly needed. I just came back from New York, we're off track, and we need to really step up the pace. So we try to do that in a sort of collaborative way within that province. But of course, we also do that in many, many other countries in the world. So other innovative tools is, for instance, what we call the SDG traineeship and the SDG professionals, then the frame that we developed in that book. And you can see all happy faces. And these are the happy faces of our students or our trainees that say, we are not going to succumb to the doom and the gloom of the present crisis. We see this as a challenge, but also as an opportunity. So let's get to work. It also means that one of the things that I would like to share with all of you is this kind of approach, and we've been working on that for the last 10 years. It's not something that we keep as a sort of our competitive story. It is our offer also to come together with all of you. And I'm in sort of a world tour. Unfortunately, New York, Almaty for me was one bridge too far to reach in one day. But you can see already that we do a world tour, and the offer is also to support you in your efforts. So that terminates my story. I started to say the big issue is we have to integrate institutes, teachers, researchers, and students in a challenge-based learning environment that we also then apply principles around this. And then, of course, there are 1,000 different ways to approach that. And I would love to engage in a conversation with all of you, how you are doing that, and maybe also to help you in that joint endeavor. Thank you for your attention.
Very much, Rob. Yeah, there was, I hope we can share the slides later on. This was also You have presentations because if you go through the slides, there is so much information. And the only thing I would like to add, and then we directly go on because we are a little bit running out of time. I hope we can add the 15 minutes we started later to the panel. We have these skill sheets, yeah, but we always start this definition again and the discussion again. What do we need? What do our students need to learn and so on? But we have so many cool approaches already there and we should share them and somehow bring them together and align them to the different cultural differences we have here. And therefore, I'm so happy and I'm now going to the next area, let's say, the Central Asian area. Plus, you will also, Aurora, be so kind and bring in the US perspective because you're focusing on also the I-5 Prime project, which is going on right now. You are here at Alma U, a senior lecturer, and your focus is on leadership, CSR, and global management. You got the Best Teacher Award of the Year from CEEMAN last year, so congratulations again. And yeah, you are an expert in the Prime I-5 project, and did you tell us a little bit how you adapt this in your environment, in your school, and what Asian and Central Asian educators can learn from you? Thank you very much.
Lisa, and thank you everyone for being here. And I'm very glad to have the possibility to share with you what we have been doing here in Alma U, but also with the help and the collaboration of many other experts from all around the world, precisely promoting, deepening, and going further, trying to find a new approach to a sustainable and a responsible management education. So I believe that Rob just provide us with a perfect framework, also with the time and talent. So I would, yes, I will try to keep my speech not that long. Well, this is the third day that we are discussing about the necessity to cover the gap that all of us are, as educators, as leaders, we are facing in front of well, the big challenge of the difference between what the market is demanding from our students and what are we being able to provide, right, to nurture with our students. So I just wanted to include something else. I mean, we said a lot during these 3 days, but there's a big, well, an immense, let's say, a tremendous research precisely that focus on that gap between what the need for talent with sustainability skills training and the number entering the workforce, sorry. Also, as you can see, well, the World Economic Forum and many other institutions are precisely now focused on realizing that this gap is greater than we thought or than we perceive, and that now is time to cover precisely that gap. Sorry, I forgot about this. So, well, precisely the challenge of today are precisely our students, today's students, but the workforce of tomorrow. And yes, the idea that we are exploring and living in the I-5 is precisely which strategy we could promote for the business schools and the social sciences universities to cover precisely those changing demands of the world. Because at the end of the day, we all realize that focus on growth, profit, and greed at the current pedagogy's focus is too much settled precisely on discipline, right? And on the content rather than in a new way of thinking and promoting the learning. So, well, this is something that I took precisely from our colleague, from Met Morsin, that yesterday she mentioned as well at her presentation that it has a great meaning to focus precisely on social sciences, because, well, they are going to be the next they are already the next generation of leaders, but also because that means a huge amount of students. I mean, almost 70 million of current students study precisely on business management and law schools. That's why precisely Prime decided to put an eye on a better promotion of a pedagogy that can precisely fix that gap. Sorry. So if I have some time, I would like to, well, but as I and Lisa settled, I would like to focus on the I5 practices and how we are implementing them in the Central Asian context, but also something that we did here in Almayu, the Global Social Impact Fellowship, which is a collaboration with another university, precisely very focused on promoting sustainability and responsible management education, but also a very brief view, if I will have some time, about, well, something that also was commented yesterday, right? The necessity to give agency to the students and to promote the students' meaningful experiences. So many, well, all of you already heard about Prime during these days, but also perhaps you hear something about I5, Impact 5. So this is an initiative, I would say that probably is the flagship of Prime, because now is really become, I mean, the outcomes are very, very already clear and interesting, but also because it implied during the last year and a half a huge effort from many people all around the world, and also because it's quite seriously financed. And in that sense, it is because we strongly believe that it could have a great impact. So, well, I repeat, this is a pedagogy. So this is not about the content, but about the way we convey, about the way we translate that content, about the way we teach at the end of the day. So the main idea is to develop in students holistic skill sets, the so-called, well, those I5, right? That will allow the educators to provide the tools to teach students precisely in these fields that we just commented. So here you have a very brief view about the story of I5. The research origin is precisely on a very large and, well, even long study by the Lego Foundation, precisely about which competencies can transform and can make learning an impactful experience. So with the help and the financing also of Lego Foundation, but having into consideration the context of business schools worldwide, and during the last year and a half, we piloted, experimented, and learned from each other. When I say from each other, I mean from the different signatory members of the entire Prime community, which is quite large and is organized in regional chapters. Here, as also was mentioned yesterday, we are proud part of the Eurasian chapter. And yes, we piloted and experimented with that, those five methods that pretend to be that impactful, and that put a great focus on how we teach responsible leaderships. And we believe that the result will be precisely students and teachers with a new and much more holistic skill set, prepared to be tomorrow's responsible leaders. Just very briefly to mention these 5 principles: make learning meaningful, foster joy and well-being, develop supportive social interaction, facilitate active engagement, and design for iteration. So this framework just inoculate in the teachers a new way of provide the entire and to perform the entire educational process. But designing all the activities and all, at the end of the day, the entire material and everything what we do at the classroom according to these 5 principles. I should also very quickly explain that each of them is articulated in different movements, as you can see. So we try as a teachers to make learning meaningful, for instance, by activities or approaches that have into consideration role modeling, personalizing, surfacing, and dignifying. So I'm happy to know that you will have the presentation, because you can, of course, take a closer view at what means each of the practices. And also, please have in mind that the playbook, which is the main for now and the first outcome that we have from the project, is already published and is so open. I mean, it has open access, so you can find it very quickly at the Prime webpage. Well, if I could have more time, I could explain you how we translated this into the reality of Almayu, into the reality of the Eurasian context, because what I did during this year and a half, and participating with other experts, as I explained, is that I define new activities, but also I redesign and put the focus on all activities that I already had at class. And I experiment with a good number of students already, because at the end of the day, that was 2 semesters and a half, 3 different specialities, almost 150 students, 6 different courses, and the movements that I apply in the classes. And what was interesting, at least for me to check, is that, well, in the specific context of Central Asia, also, I perceive the necessity or the relevance of a specific movements. And, well, this we could speak about this very long, but the question is that, from my perspective, what I check is that make learning meaningful, facilitate active engagement, and develop supportive social interaction was something that for our students here at Almayu was extremely relevant and very, well, quite challenging, of course, for me as a teacher, but also a new perspective about how I could focus my classes. A couple of words about a second initiative that we had here in Almayu, and that I had the honor to more or less to start and push a little bit with other teachers and colleagues from here from Almayu, which is the Global Social Impact Fellowship. This is a collaboration with Lehigh University in Pennsylvania. And the idea is, well, to create a student-centered cooperation to focus on, of course, on share wicked, as we mentioned many times already in the 3 days, problems that we together could try to address some way, at least to increase social awareness at the end of the day. Because if I tell you that the problem in which I worked, it was air pollution in Almaty, you can perfectly realize that, well, it's not a problem that we could solve in a couple of months. But anyways, we worked together with the students from, as I say, Lehigh University, promoting, why not to repeat it, even when it was settled that just in the previous panel, that the 3rd mission of the university is also something that could be make a reality by our students. It's not only our, as teacher or leaders, our responsibility. So yes, very briefly, we just wanted to with our students to mitigate exposure to air pollution in Almaty, recommending healthier and safer action via a mobile application that we created with the students. The question is that what we saw in a first sight, our students just working together, and that could sound like quite interesting international experience is something we believe much deeper, is the easiest leverage for change. I'm part of the working group on sustainability mindset. They're in Prime as well. And well, precisely I realize that and also as we some way commented yesterday with an intervention from our president, Silvia, we commented that, well, even when corruption could be not included in the SDGs, if you have a sustainability mindset, you will be, of course, discovering new challenges and new things that perhaps are not included in an agenda. But in the specific case of this country here in Central Asia or in other countries, at the end of the day, I mean, it's a mindset, it's a way of being. Why not? And yes, this is interesting to check that also there in Lehigh University. They have this model of the impact that they provide to their students, that mindset, skill set, and portfolio somewhere should be integrated in such a way that, yes, we promote that mindset that I just mentioned, or just that new state of being. And towards about other meaningful experiences that I believe that all of us, we could create this at class. Yesterday also was mentioned this idea of giving agency to the students. And I had very good experiences with them. For instance, 15 minutes, for instance, focusing on how they can get involved in something as interesting as a hackathon about the future of higher education that was promoted in Spain, in University of, I cannot remember, that was 2 years ago, but we collaborated with them. And it was super insightful for my students, because during 2 weeks, they reflected about the future of higher education. And also, as a matter of a simple example, a mirror class that we had with La Rochelle University from France about digitalization and sustainability. So I believe that those perhaps small activities can, of course, be, why not, trampolines to something bigger, which is like a declaration of principles, okay? That we are here at the end of the day, as teachers, educators, to make them, the students, responsible and aware of their roles, of their role as agents of change. So that way we not only help them to overcome insecurities and other behaviors that perhaps we could find in a very superficial view, okay, but also we are nurturing those change agent changes that change agents, sorry, that we all would like to be in charge of our institution the day of tomorrow. That's all from my side. I think that was like 17 minutes. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Aurora. Yeah, I'm very happy to see how, because I always have confessed I'm not really very experienced in how I5 works then in reality, but now we have a first insight how you implement this in your own university. Thank you very much. And maybe only one sentence before I hand over to you, Saloni. I was always discussing with Mette that 1/3 of all students is about management and law, and I always said, is this really the reason why we should put more effort into sustainable management education, or should we question this number? Is it really necessary that we have 1/3 of the students implemented in management? Should we not go for other disciplines, more technology, digitalization related, and bring it together with management? So this is really something we can also discuss later on about the what to teach in the future. So there is a reason for, let's say, the order of the different speeches here, because now I'm handing over to Saloni from India, from the BIMTech University, because she is famous all around the world, for her art and theater-based teaching innovation. And this is really something we are not used to. So I put this in the end. You are involved in a lot of social projects. You are really, your mantra is to be innovative, and how you can serve the society with your teaching programs. You're not only teaching students, you're also working with governments and so on. So the floor is yours. We are really appreciating your presentation, because that's really something innovative. Thank you very much.
Okay, so namaste from India. I'm Saloni, and you know that India is a very diverse country, and to bring the entire ethos and essence in 15 minutes would not be possible, but I'll take you through a journey. I also come from, this is not going ahead. This is not going ahead. This way? Okay. Thanks. I'm sorry for this. I'm extremely sorry. Are you doing it with me? Oh, yes. I think they were also doing it with me. So now see how important it is to have a personal connect, and why theater and why art all the time. You know, the devices are putting us as an embarrassment. So yeah, so as I said, we also have the highest number of CEOs leading very big corporates, and which is also about a country which is very big, very young, and therefore a big impetus on building the right mindset with the right kind of skills for the globe. I just want to share a little about my institute. We are an AACSB accredited institute, 35-year-old, set up by the founders who have been out in the industry, but with a social good mission. So we carry that in our culture in the institute as well. And therefore, you can see that we are also a part of a lot of these initiatives like social impact labels and pre-RME, etc. I'll not be elaborating on these at all. So these are our founders, and I just wanted to let you know a little about the vision, mission, and values of my institute, because it gives us an agenda. And why this is important for me as a faculty is that whatever I do, I must align all my activities for the best outcomes with the vision, mission, and values of my institute, as well as the regulators and the accreditation bodies, which have allowed us to deliver our programs for more than 3 decades now. So I'm here with a journey of a small, experience of me and my students. I'm grateful to them. The idea is that it's very essential that we all talk about various agencies like, the societies, the groups, but we don't say ever that it is us, the teachers. So when I enter the class, I say, and please don't change yet. Please don't change the slide yet. Yeah. So when I say that, I'm extremely sorry about this. Okay, no problem. So I'll skip all that. So what I wanted to say was that as a teacher, we bring ourselves into the classroom. So when Lisa mentioned that I'm involved in some social activities, ever since I've started teaching, there was some part of my class work which brought the students into the social community work. And that actually made the organizations wherever I worked also initiate solid social impact projects. So in an engineering college, I initiated a campaign called CARES, Creating Aware and Responsible Engineers for Society, some 15 years back. It is still one of the strongest NGO of that institute, and they work on social welfare. So the same I've done in my institute, and we wanted to assert the fact that it's not because we are an AACSB or we have these labels for social impact, but because the fact that our students have to become global change makers. They will be CEOs, they will be managers, but they have to be carrying the right skills, they have to have the right mindset. So when I enter the class, I'm actually going for this agenda. It's really not about my subject as much as it is about the right, right kind of resource. And therefore, I say that, we need to be very curious, very courageous, if at all we want our classrooms to change. And when I say we, I mean all of us individually as faculty. I'm not talking only about the institute and the agenda of the accreditation bodies. So I wanted to say that this gave us an opportunity to leave the right footprints, which will be about the sustainable development goals. And that makes it easier for me to actually integrate that in my classes. And because AICSB is talking about smart skills, World Economic Forum is talking about future skills, everybody's talking about future skills. And everybody wants the right kind of resource, job ready to take on work. But we actually really just want empathetic people. Beyond that, you can train, they're trainable. Because in 5 days, another new technology comes and we become, capable of using that platform for our classes, we did that. So these are the two main reasons why I enter the class and why I bring my students together on the same. Rest will happen because it will happen through the curriculum, assessments, etc. So I just wanted to share with you that when we start doing things, we make social leaders in the classrooms. And when we nurture their skills right, they are able to shoulder really big events, and we have global presence because of the initiatives that the students took. The group that I'm talking about are the sections I teach, plus I do a lot of things beyond the classroom to clubs and conduits, the student groups, societies, which handle and shoulder institute responsibilities, as well as, clubs which are meant for their passion, like music, art, etc. There is immense scope that is available to us to integrate SDGs over there. So we are talking about these global reports, and everywhere you've noticed that the gaps they say is about not just the technical skills, but just look at that. They're only talking about communication, entrepreneurship, leadership, and management. That's really important for us. And this was just a summary of, us just from there. And this is something which I brought from a Theatrics report, which talks about the national education policy of India. It opens up a lot of opportunities for all of you to integrate, some agenda of SDG along with us, because it is opening up a lot of opportunities to work for our students. So therefore, I'll take you through a quick journey. When in COVID-19, we had, the important role of becoming the teachers who were always on camera without the students ever coming on camera. So whatever technological challenges happened at their end, not ours. So we had to be very adaptive. And that was one time when we realized that we are just not in India, we are all over the globe. And we have to have the correct cross-culture quotient very high. For that, I wanted my students to understand curiosity is the topmost skill. And we know how lockdown was for all of us. I won't take you there. This was our reality. This was the reality and the bumpy ride we have survived, and we are here today. And the students were in very, very trying situations we were not aware of. So what I did was I created an assignment which helped me manage a lot of these things. And how? Just by bringing in a lot of love, compassion in my class, in the chaotic world that we were in. So I saw that during COVID, everybody was into art and it was healing us very well. They were sharing on social media. I thought it was good to introduce a concept because I thought art brought all the generations together, and they will work beautifully when they're out in the organizations in different age groups. And so this was the main motivation. At that time, the reports were really crying loud about growth mindset, creativity, etc. This was the assignment. I made the students create comic books, and I made them work and research on groups of nations and identify a social problem that was reported in media during COVID. So it made them understand the social challenges. I have a wonderful mentor in Dr. Abhijit Bhaduri, who is currently the Learning and Development Head at Microsoft. He does a lot of sketch notes. So I shared my idea and he loved it. So I brought industry mentoring in my curriculum design. The best part was that this was the last 10 days of the trimester, after which end semester was to start. So one of my mentor, who is a case writer, he told me, and thank you, Virginia, because they had announced a storybook math case study compilation, and the deadline was 15th January, and we were talking on 3rd of January. My students started exam on 7th of January. So it was terrible. Obviously, all the students would say what? No. They did say no. They said no. And they rejected me. They rejected my assignment. But you know, we have these amazing students who are a part of my theater club. They're also a part of the media club, which I handle. And they were a part of the same class where I was announcing this. So I had support. I had ambassadors. They have worked with me beyond the classroom, so they knew that there would be some value. None of them were cartoonists, but these are made by them. They made a cartoon out of me as well. And they made 20 comic books. It's all available here. But the best part was that, you know, after having done this, we were getting lots of recognition because 15th of January, we were successfully, submitted the comic format case study to Emerald, and it got published by the end of the year. And before the placement, my students, they had an object of their skills, of their competencies. They did not need the CV at all. And it was all there on social media because companies are finding them out over there too. So therefore, it was a wonderful opportunity, and this is how the journey was. You can see them, you know, and we were shortlisted at Times Higher Education Awards Asia in the top 60 entry for the top 10 shortlisting. I was there. And this is listed by Carnegie Mellon Library in just a year's time. So it happened because we trusted on each other. And we said that art would heal. And so I got the trust of all my students. And let me tell you, this was just about art, but this is the student club where the members are and the media team works with me. We go out in the community to sensitize them about SDGs. Just look at the number of people, 5 locations on the same day. More than 500 amateur college artists perform street plays, and they sensitize different people like local market, schools, malls, and this is what we do as a club. And therefore, it brings me proudly here in 15 years of the existence of Majlis, the Theatre and Debating Society, which is all about now SDGs. And we are voicing it loud and sensitizing it through theater, art, poetry, and a lot of discussions and roundtables. And the first ever student-led business literature festival, which happens every year in February. This year, it will be the 4th edition. It's all student-led. So would you like to hire them? They are brave. Just make them live the roles. This is not role-playing. This is not role-playing. So I think, yes, you're right. If we are able to do this much with theater, we will have whole brain thinkers. And that's why I'm here today. So this is just an individual's initiative, not really guided entirely by all. You don't have to stick to what the accreditation bodies or regulators say. Be courageous. The institute and the accreditation bodies will find space for you. And that's what we did. So thank you so much, all for the mission of Sustainable Development Goals. And these are some that we could actually give examples of. Thank you, Lisa, for this space.
Thank you so much. I think this was a really amazing journey through the different continents with the different approaches. And yeah, we don't have that much time for the discussion left. Maybe you can do it also then in the lunch or during the lunch break. But we have three main stakeholders. Yeah, we have the students, how to motivate them. And I think India is a perfect example how easy this could be realized. Yeah, because at the ROM conference, every let's say regular teacher, educator was complaining they are not motivated anymore. What can we do? But here, if we try to implement those aspects, I think it's perfectly fine. What Rob also said with this institutional problem, and what I tried to let's say visualize with this one statement from the latest book of Henry Mintzberg. Our institutional surrounding, our environment has to change. Yeah, we have to give those innovative educators a space, and this is my most important question to the panelists here and also to the auditorium, so we can make maybe a kind of joint discussion here. What can we do that our educators are willing to implement those kind of innovative teaching formats? Because the problem is always, as you said, yeah, if you challenge students with this completely new understanding, they first of all say no, yeah, because that's too much work. We don't know how this is working. I get bad grades, whatever, yeah. So they're not willing to join you. So, and educators, especially if you are on this tenure track journey, they are not taking the risk of being, let's say, poorly evaluated by their students, because then their journey is on risk. They will never become a full professor. So what can we do in terms of support the educators to really implement those innovative teaching formats? We have, as you have seen in the presentations, they are there, but we have to implement them.
They're trying to say something.
Yeah.
Hello. So yeah, I see that very often. It's a big problem on a higher education level, but also on primary and secondary education level. There's a lot of good initiatives that are happening, but the problem is that it's subjective to the individual teacher to decide whether they want to deliver that content or not. And so maybe you get 1 out of every 30 teachers that are very proactive and want to do it. But even the ones that are proactive, it's difficult because it's not part of the curricula. It's an add-on, something in addition to the curricula. So it creates a lot of implementation difficulties for teachers because they already have a full load of work that they need to deliver based on the standards and learning objectives that they have for their subjects. So any additional content is difficult for them because they have a full workload. So in my view, I think what's really good is to make all these things mandatory. So you integrate it into the subjects, the subject curricula, which is then approved by the university and then is delivered by the teachers. So if you have like didactical content, like books, for example, you can make the books mandatory, right? There's mandatory reading content that is certified by the university that each teacher needs to teach in each subject. If you're doing learning objectives, right, they have to do that. It's integrated, and they can use this, the methodologies that you develop, and then use that because it's already certified by the university, or on a primary, secondary level, same thing.
But that's the institutional framework then. So you have to convince the deans, but then you also have to make the link to the accreditation agencies, because if they're not accepting this, then you have an issue, and then we have.
But that's what you need to do. Certified. That's what you have to do. You have to institutionalize all of this work to really make it effective.
So I'll tell you quickly about the BSIS label and the AACSP. So what I've just shared is the comic book assignment was a part of my effective managerial communication class. And first it was meant for the international business batch, but I also continued in my other section, which is a core PGDM, and there are specializations. Now, the best part was that in the next year, like the next cycle, in the doing business course, the same was replicated. And the next step was that we were in the process of accreditation at that time. They wanted examples of learning by doing, creative projects, which was also replicated in other subjects. So it was fantastic because all my assignments were shared as an example, and it worked very well for us, and the accreditation agencies accepted that. But as I said, it was just my small classwork, but it had a larger impact to the institute branding and accreditation as well. The other picture that I showed you, the two guys, they were a part of a skit activity, which was around 5 research papers. So we are told bring research in your class. So there were 5 autoethnography papers, which I picked up just this trimester. I concluded it last week. They were about professors who wrote of bullying, and Alone on Stage is a paper about a gay professor and what challenges he faced. And I must tell you that the students really did a great job, and it was an eye-opener for them. It was cathartic for a few, and they never had looked towards the teacher's life. It was that, challenging for them. So it is also a leadership course where an OBHR faculty, she and me, we together, evaluated it. So it's always something that you create which will be useful. The comic case study is being used as in the finance class, strategy class, leadership class, and we enacted parts of it in a particular university. Finance, HR, risk management, and 2 other departments were there. And the same case study was discussed in a theater mode. They enacted parts and bringing their perspective. So it was done very successfully. So that's why theater and collaboration and interdisciplinary is the way forward. It will make your institute get motivated to support you. And therefore, I was able to introduce an elective called Corporate Effectiveness through Theater Techniques. And it's running successfully. So we are going the other way around, showing impact and convincing them along with the students.
I'll be refreshingly quick. Project-based learning.
Yes.
I was actually looking at it from the student perspective as well, is we have to allow our students the chance to fail.
Yes.
And it not affect their grade, because if they're worried about their grades, plain and simple. They want to know they're going to get a good grade. And I approach it in, like, for example, in negotiations, I say, it's okay if you can't complete the negotiation, if you cannot come to a deal, as long as you are implementing what we've talked about and the skill sets, and you can show me that you've learned, because never sign a bad deal, basically. And in all of my classes, I give them the opportunity to fail so that they learn from that failure and they're willing to try something more bold and new, and to think it's something from a new perspective. And they'll come to me and say, we want to look at it this way. And I say, well, that's good. Let's talk about this. Let's think about it. How are you going to move that forward? And how are you going to work on that and apply what we're learning in class for that instance and that idea? And so I think you have to allow, from a student's perspective, but also from a faculty perspective, the university needs to allow faculty to fail. They need to allow them to try something new. And if it's not successful, that should be okay.
I think I'm very
You're
blessed.
completely right. Yeah,
I'm very
I
blessed.
don't think every university is very good at allowing faculty to fail.
yeah, but then we are back also to the legal requirements. So I see that Rob is still there, because I really wanted to ask him about his opinion on how do we have to change the business model? Yeah, because then we are back to your contribution that we also have to allow the faculty to fail, which is right now not possible, because then you are out of the way to your full professorship. Rob, we discussed this in New York a little bit. So what we have to change the business school model itself, the business model, so that we can enable this. And this is also linked to what we heard in the previous panel. Yeah, so the research is the same thing. Yeah, so we have a very strict idea what is good research, but it's not having any kind of impact. Yeah, and we have to change this too.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Actually, it's interesting to see that we study business as a business school. We try to teach our students also to link up to 21st century skills and the like, that also business needs. But we don't listen to business. We don't listen to students. Actually, if we would listen to business, we would know also that they have the intention to be sustainable for a variety of reasons, also the buy-in in the SDGs, but they have difficulties in implementing this. And actually, I see that at the university, the same thing. The intention will be there, but the implementation is difficult. So actually, the remarks made by many of you are really relevant. Now, we can wait until we change the institution. We can also try to plug into the enthusiasm of individual teachers, researchers, and then listen to our students, because 60–70% of our students are really explicit about that. They see the challenges in their life, they see the challenges in society, and they want to also see within the university also something happening with that. So we have been doing this for the last 10 years already, and it's not perfect at all. Actually, there is a sort of vicious approach there where, for instance, I did a lot of initiatives around the Sustainable Development Goals, but it also means that some of my colleagues who are also well-intended say, well, because Rob or my department is doing that, then I don't have to do that. And then we go back to business as usual. And the term that we approach to companies, that we reproach them even for saying, you do business as usual, but you actually really have to change your business model in order to deal with the challenge that we all face on the global scale. As long as we are not recreating our own institute to develop that further, then we have a legitimacy problem also as a business school, as a university. So in that complex interaction, I think it is great to keep on track, to use the Prime network, to then engage in inspiring challenges. And I heard a lot of those examples. Keep your eye on the ball, and then things hopefully can change. And of course, within that, it is important to formalize it, also to institutionalize it. But don't count on it that if you institutionalize, for instance, what we did, the whole teaching of the bachelor courses, every teacher has to link it up to the SDG agenda, for instance, which is a sort of rule, but that doesn't mean that they will actually really do it. So we need to engage in joint learning, failing also. I think that is an important lesson. And if we don't allow our students to fail, why would we then sort of be able to fail ourselves? So the courageous, the inspirational environment that I think universities and institutes of higher education should become, we have to invest in, even for our own sake. And one of the things I can tell you, the last 10 years, also last 20 years also in my university career have been quite challenging, but there was one thing I always kept inspired by, because I thought the relevance I was doing was really great. The students liked it. Some of my colleagues really liked it. And then in the end, we also were able to also come up with many interesting examples. And I hope to have conveyed some of that to all of you. So yeah, that's all. And yeah, on a global scale, we are off track. We need to step up the pace. And part of the story is there are institutional barriers, not only in society or in government or business, but actually at the universities we face ourselves. And the only thing is, hopefully that we create these platforms to give ourselves the best ideas and to inspire each other.
So this could be maybe a further task of CEEMAN. Let's create hiring temples where we encourage ourselves, to really come up with this. But I'm completely with you. So it's, if you really try to bring something forward and to see it's working, then you also inspire the students, your colleagues, and so on. There is one, we say then the final question, so I don't want to keep you away from lunch.
It's not a question, it's just a propose. I want to say thank you for all panelists for this best practices. I'm Oksana Sidashova from Ukraine, and I have proposed also to Danica. You know, in the world, there is the huge organizations, one organization, Inner Development Goals, EIDG. There is one organization who created one exclusive skill set for person who wants to achieve SDGs. Maybe it makes sense to make partnership with this organization and integrate all our different skill sets in one set and go in one way. Thank you. What do you think about it? Maybe you know, this organization. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then we have a discussion point we can use for lunch, but I think there is a lot to discuss, and maybe we should come back to you after the conference and get some inspiration. What do you think? What kind of projects we should bring in? And I'm completely with you. We have to cooperate, yeah, because there is so much out already there. We don't have to invent it all the time, the next step and the next step. And we should not forget about the cultural context. That's very important, yeah, because the skills are not working for every continent. Therefore, I was so happy, and thank you again for all the panelists, because we reflected the whole world today, yeah, and you see how different it is. And now we have to find a way to bring it together. Thank you very much for staying a little bit longer with us. Thank you,
everyone.